Come on in, folks, come on in. Come on in and be ready for the show that we deserve. Get your French seats, take your beverages, get ready, and we will have the show that we deserve. Right? The show that sets everything up. The show that makes everything worth it. The show that informs us, inspires us, and makes us happy. Let us begin. Let us begin. Let me send this message to people on WhatsApp. WhatsApp. Where is WhatsApp? Yeah. Whenever I send a thinker's frequency message to people on my WhatsApp with thousands of them, people leave. People leave the group, folks. Let us begin. WhatsApp done, LinkedIn done, YouTube done. Now let's have the show that we deserve. Them? Yeah, LinkedIn is good. The audio is working. WhatsApp done, LinkedIn. YouTube is working. Good morning, audible, says Mr. Sumanth Kumar. Good morning, Mr. Kumar. And that's good that I'm audible. Let's begin. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. And not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! But before we go, we gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like hot water with black pepper in it. And there we go. Nice. Let's do it again. Healing. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. Which is such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So something really interesting happened yesterday. It changed the world. You know what happened? So Bill Ackman, the famous investor, he was wondering about the lack of, or let's say the falling rate of men approaching women, you know. So he said that men are not approaching women, and that's a very, very big problem. And men should approach women, and men should have essentially some form of game while talking to women or while quoting women at live events, right? And he was deeply disappointed that men have seemingly lost the ability to approach women, right? And you know what he did? he gave people advice on how to reach, how to essentially hit on women. So Bill Ackman gave some advice on how to approach women. And what was the advice? The advice was, he said that back in the day, I used to reach out to women and I used to look at them and say, "May I meet you?" May I meet you? Okay? And no women ever said no because it's courteous, it's grammatically nice, and so on and so forth. And then women met me and I used to talk to them without any problems. May I meet you? So some guys, got inspired by Bill Ackman, Mr. Bill Ackman, and they ended up approaching women by "May I meet you?" Now, you can guess what happened. Women laughed at their faces, right? Extremely uncourteously. They laughed at their faces, and then, a guy said that I followed Bill Ackman's advice of trying to talk to women using "May I meet you?" And they had like a proper teary-eyed laugh at me, and now I'm alone at the bar drinking this shitty beer that I always drink, right? That's what happened with "May I meet you?" What Bill Ackman failed, to tell was that he is like a 6'3", perfect hair, uh, very good looks, like a great body, great face, billionaire. So I'll say it again: 6'3", perfect hair, perfect head, uh, perfect body, and a billionaire. Harvard educated, right? So, should you ever take dating advice or courting advice from somebody who is 6'3", Harvard educated, perfect hair, perfect face, perfect body? Of course not. You should never do that. So if you make the mistake of following the advice of talking to women from somebody like that, people essentially, you might just get very, very embarrassed. That's what happened. uh, and coming to the real world, people, it's just so it started a Twitter storm, where people are, it's like a meme of the year, "May I meet you?" So people are sending messages to Sydney Sweeney, writing "May I meet you?" Right? Amazing. "May I meet you?" Never take advice of quoting women from somebody who's 6'3", a billionaire, Harvard educated, perfect hair, perfect head. So that is something that's very interesting. There's a lot of questions. I'll address those, but let's have fun. So something very interesting happened now in the Bitcoin play. Bitcoin lost all the value. So it's basically flatlined from a year, right? People say that 94,000 was the resistance point when it came to Bitcoin. These technical charts, guys, which I don't trust technical analysis at all. But anyway, they said that the resistance points, if 94,000 goes down, a lot of leverage and liquidation play essentially kicks in. And when it kicks in, it has the risk of going down to 74K. So it might just lose out like 20 to 30% of its value if it falls down from 94, and it has already fallen down from 94. So that's a very, very big problem. Bitcoin, as I said, is amongst the leading indicators for whatever is happening in the financial ecosystem, right? The fiat financial ecosystem. Bitcoin falls, it could be start of something new, right? Michael Saylor, of course, is in trouble. We've talked about MicroStrategy, NAV going down, but he's still very bullish. He says we're gonna buy, right? That's what's happening. A lot of action happening on the Bitcoin front. However, the stocks are green, gold is green, bonds are green, so everything else is still up, right? Speaking of what is up, Mr. Peter Thiel liquidated his positions in Nvidia and Tesla. 76% of all Tesla shares sold. Uh, you know, then there is Nvidia, all shares sold. So Mr. Peter Thiel has been a long bear on Nvidia. Strategically, he has said that Nvidia has problems, right? And basically, it's impossible for a hardware company to maintain the kind of profitability that Nvidia has maintained. Essentially, Nvidia makes all the money which AI makes. 90% of all AI profits go to Nvidia. He has said that there's going to be a time sooner or later when somebody catches up to the Nvidia juggernaut, and he sold the shares. Somebody's messaging me. Uh, Please don't. Anyway, so that's what's happening with AI, right? Of course, everything else is pretty much where it was. Uh, Donald Trump, Mr. Trump essentially gave an interview. He said that the US economy is doing really well. Inflation we are being able to manage. He also said that, wind energy is a scam, wind energy is a hoax, climate change is a hoax, and wind energy is basically just, China doesn't use wind energy, but it makes all the wind equipment, right? So they are very smart. Europe is in trouble. Europe uses a lot of wind energy. His argument is that wherever wind farms get set up, right, real estate goes down, and also wind energy ends up killing a lot of birds, right? So it's ecologically bad, and also the financial impact of wind energy is pretty lackadaisical, or in fact negative. Also, wind is not very reliable, and also the lifespan of wind, essentially the whole equipment is very expensive to set up. It takes a lot of time for that money to recover. By that time, the whole thing goes out, right? So those are the perspective, and that's essentially what's happening. Speaking of climate change is a hoax, it was basically illegal to say just a few years ago, but now a lot of science supporting this particular side is coming out and saying that, yeah, those are, so we've discussed all of that. The whole climate model, Michael Schellenberger coming out with a report saying that the whole sea level rise was a hoax, right? And it was a hoax, known hoax, which was deliberately perpetrated by the research establishment, the science and research establishment, because of money, because this ushered a new economy, new era of economy, which essentially led to this. Now, there's another research that has come out, which has essentially said that tariffs do not actually lead to inflationary troubles. So there's this Bank of San Francisco or something of that sort. They've come out with a proper academic report where they studied tariffs from 1850s, 1880s to now, and they said that tariffs do not cause the inflationary troubles. Tariff might cause unemployment issues and so on and so forth, but definitely not uh, inflationary troubles. Now, this is radically opposite to whatever the economists had been saying for a very long time. Very long time, right? So, the whole academic establishment was pretty much set on the belief that tariffs cause inflationary trouble. And now, academic consensus is like shifting towards the opposite direction. Now, what does it tell you? The insight isn't what these academics are saying now or what these academics were saying earlier. That's not the insight. You know what the insight is? The insight is to never trust these guys, right? The insight is that authority bias is cancer. Now, if you listen to the experts like through 2 years ago, right, you would have been wrong. Not saying that you would be right now. It's like you cannot trust these guys. The whole establishment of the academic consensus, right? That itself is so fraudulent and so driven by money, so corrupted by money, that if you are following it and if you consider it the gospel truth, you are the idiot, right? That's what is the very important insight. Speaking of global orders, right? Israel and Hamas situation is heated up again. Russia Ukraine situation was, of course, heated already. Pakistan, Afghanistan. So the global geopolitical instability is also on the rise. China and Japan are essentially heating up. China has done some sort of patrolling in Japanese waters, which are contested, but still Japanese waters. So, very weird situations happening when it comes to geopolitical instability. Uh, all of these things essentially make gold uh, more proper, like a better bet, and that's what's happening with gold prices. They're okay. Uh, Now that is whatever is happening now. I'll just talk about some context. That was the global order, the international finance, and so on. Right? Let me just look at the comments. Namaste, bhai. I have a question. What happens? How to see vast number of people losing jobs due to automation, and then what would happen to consumption? Oh, this is a very asks Mr. Head at Home. This is essentially uh, a very common question. It says that if AI and automation essentially become very ubiquitous, and they lead to a loss of jobs, a lot of loss of jobs, who leads the consumption? Well, that is a very natural question. The answer is nobody knows. Nobody knows. So, what the AI people are saying is that AI will bring so much of redundancy, okay? So much of abundance. So AI will bring so much of abundance that it will lead to extraordinary deflation of costs of all kinds. So it, because AI brings makes so much of money, right? And AI robots and so these people bring infinite abundance. That infinite abundance essentially brings down the cost of everything to zero. So everybody can buy everything. That's the argument. Now that's not my argument. I'm not just cooking this shit up. This is Mr. Elon Musk who says that infinite abundance, prices of these commodities going to zero, everybody can buy everything, right? That's what these people are saying. I don't believe it, of course. There are a lot of holes in that hypothesis, but that's the argument. So, to answer your question, I don't know, and I bother about that as well, right? Even if, let's say, you reach a place where AI leads to infinite abundance and so on and so forth, till the time that transition has happened, right? Let's say that transition happens in a few years, 5 years, 10 years. What happens during those 5 years, 10 years? What happens to people during that time, during that overture, during that transition, right? That's when people be toast, right? Become toasts. So that's obviously bad. Mr. William Davis asks, Upgrad eyeing Byju's also? We've discussed that yesterday or day before, sometime. But yeah, they are submitting a bid because Byju's is in bankruptcy proceedings. So that's what's happening. Moving on. The new data law, essentially the DPDP thing, the data privacy and all, it's going to unlock a 10,000 crore space because companies will have to invest a lot into privacy and security, data security, and so on and so forth. So that's what's happening. Consent management could alone account for 10% of the total business. There's an EY report. This whole law was brought a couple of years ago. Now it's coming into action. And as it comes into action, of course, a lot of compliance and regulatory burdens will be put on companies. The fear is that these burdens don't come to the startups, right? The small businesses. If they do, it's going to be a bit of an issue. But the big companies will have to shell out some money. So good opportunities for cybersecurity, or let's say data security, and so on and so forth. Moving on, folks. Uh, of course, there's a lot of spend. There's some report which says non-tech firms up AI spends to stay ahead of the curve. Demand for AI professionals among non-tech firms rose 25 to 50% compared to last year. Well, is anybody surprised at this report? Like AI experts are getting hired? Come on, why do you need to write a report like that? But anyway, that's what's happening. Dunzo's Kabir Biswas. So Mr. Kabir Biswas was the founder of Dunzo. Dunzo is the startup which ended up you know becoming toast after raising $500 million. That's more than 4,000 crore rupees. They rose 4,000 crore. They raised 4,000 crore rupees, never made money, and then just went burst. And you know what the beauty is? The VCs essentially tricked Reliance into buying Dunzo before it went up in flames. So Reliance also tasted some of the VC magic. It invested like $230 million or something in Dunzo, and then it went up in flames. Like there couldn't be any value derived from Dunzo. But the Dunzo's founder, Mr. Kabir Biswas, he's looking at raising $12 million in seed round for his latest venture. It's basically AI concierge startup. AI concierge, what it wants to do, it essentially makes an agent for you which can book your tickets and so on and so forth, right? So that's a very common use case that AI bulls have been proposing. So $12 million seed round. Now I know you'll ask me, how can he raise money? Because his first startup didn't work and it ended up raising like $500 million, and even then it went toast. Nobody made money, and everybody lost money on him. How do you do that? That's how the VC world works, folks. Because when he rose all that money, raising money is essentially very, very important. Raising money is perhaps the most important skill right now. Most of startups, most of entrepreneurship right now is essentially a capital allocation play. I'll say it again. Entrepreneurship right now is not building products, is not building a service, it's not making money, it's not saving money, it's not adding cash in the bank. It's essentially a capital allocation exercise. If you can raise money, you're good. If you can't, you're bad. As simple as that, right? That's how it is. And he has displayed some strength, right? While essentially raising $500 million, more than that, $500 million for a startup that went up in smoke, right? So that happened in many, many, many rounds. So a lot of investors still made money as the startup raised all that cash, right? So that is Dunzo looking at $12 million fundraise, right? Remember, uh, entrepreneurship in this day and age is all about capital allocation, capital raising, and capital. It's not the service, it's not the product, it's not what you're building, it's not the cash that you're accumulating, it is capital allocation. Moving on, folks. Nobody wants to admit it, but that's the fact. We've talked about how search engine optimization has been taken over by generative AI optimization, GEO it's called. A lot of companies are essentially optimizing their results for Gemini and OpenAI and so on and so forth. That's what's happening with e-commerce majors. They're tweaking their listings for better AI chatbot visibility. Well, nobody should be surprised. LLM search is taking over search. It's essentially changing the whole play. You remember, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how we talked about LLM has found a way to kill the internet. Again, I'll say it again. LLM, Google, search has found a way to kill the internet. How does it kill the internet? Let's say, what was Google's job? What was a search engine's job? It was to uh, scourge the whole internet and provide you links, right? The relevant links. Now what it does is, it instead of providing you the link, it provides you the summary. Okay. Now the summary is built on the links, but nobody goes to the links anymore, right? 80% of people, essentially 80 to 90% of people, just look at the summary, and that's it. What happens when 80 to 90% of people look at just the summary uh, and don't go on the link? People who are actually writing the articles, they die, right? It becomes a commercially unviable activity as they're trying to make money. So they can't write the articles anymore. If they can't write the articles anymore, what do you fetch and what do you summarize, right? So essentially, it has found a way to kill itself. But till it kills itself, right? The companies essentially are turning around in ways, because these people will have to see. uh, Mr. Tushar Tiwari says, now I see even articles are AI generated slop. Yeah. So AI has really screwed people's ability to think and write, that's for sure. Like, people can't write mails anymore. People are not being able to just, everything. Even on my, like, if you go to LinkedIn and my streams, these thinker frequency streams, there are AI comment and it's written. I mean, they're so lazy, intellectually lazy, that they don't even delete the website which they used to comment on the particular piece, right? I tune in daily. You commented by Commentify.ai and so on and so forth. So, real dumbness taking over in very, very big ways. Very weird, extremely weird. Moving on, folks. But for now, e-commerce majors are essentially tweaking their listings. Is anybody surprised? Nobody should be surprised. Moving on, folks. Europe is set to loosen its AI privacy rules. Speaking of AI, uh, Europe, as we've discussed, is an American tech colony and now a Chinese tech colony. Europe doesn't have startups of its own because it's so highly regulated, and it's such a, uh, you know, it's a flop show. Europe is essentially dead as disco. We discussed about how Germany killed itself, right? I recently watched interviews about a river, Oxfordshire, and it was like a 20 feet deep plastic uh, drain essentially. So it was just plastic waste engulfing the entire river. There was no river. It was just a 20 feet uh, plastic shit show, right? Just as you expect, let's say, in a very, very bad part of India. So that's UK, that's Oxfordshire. And now they're trying to compete, right? They're trying to do something. So they are basically loosening the AI privacy rules. What did I tell you about AI regulation, right? If you don't regulate AI, AI becomes strong and kills you, right? But if you regulate AI, your AI doesn't become strong, but somebody else's AI becomes strong and then it kills you. Right? So it's a Kobayashi Maru situation. Regulating AI is basically against your interest or against your self preservation instinct, right? And Europe seems to have realized that, so they're loosening their privacy policies. Uh, Moving on, there are a few comments. How shall one keep the skills of one's writing alive? Are you not tempted to use AI for writing your LinkedIn posts slash blogs? Asks Mr. Tushar Tiwari. So, writing essentially is not just writing is not the skill. The skill is not writing. Writing is a joke. Writing is okay. Writing is a semantic exercise, right? What writing does is it makes you think. So if you're just sitting and trying to write, it's a very big mental workout, and suddenly, slowly and steadily, you essentially become so tight with whatever you're thinking that basically becomes very irrefutable. And the longer you can write, the better your thinking becomes, right? So if you go very long form, let's say LinkedIn only allows 3,000 characters. 3,000 characters is about 350 words or something of that sort. You go bigger, right? You write 1,000 words. And if you just keep writing and keep polishing it, it's such a good mental workout that it makes you think. And it makes you think very well, because when you're talking like I'm talking right now, there's a lot of chance of bullshitting, right? There's a lot of chance of wavering. There's a lot of chance of roundabout, right, where you basically repeat yourself. There's a lot of there's a serious scope of essentially uh, you know just losing track of what you're saying, right? Drifting, rounding about, making mistakes, factual, conceptual, and so on, because you have a scope of correcting yourself. When you're writing, you don't have that scope. So writing then becomes a very, very good way to think. So when people start using AI for writing, they're not just uh, uh, messing with their writing skill. It doesn't matter. They're messing with their thinking skill, and that's what matters a lot. So I don't use AI for my writing. I mean, I use AI to get the information or to confirm some of the thoughts that I'm having, or to uh, I wrestle with the AI to essentially make sure that what I'm writing makes sense to me, right? So it becomes like a bouncing board, but I never write even a sentence using AI. I make sure that what I'm writing is my own writing, and that's how, that's why people like it, perhaps, because it's very, very individualistic, right? So even if so there is, when you look at grammatically, or let's say if not grammatically, conventionally, people say that you shouldn't write begin your sentences with and, right? But I do. But I do. That's my idiosyncrasy. That's how I write, right? And I begin my sentences with and because that's how I talk, right? And my writing essentially, what my goal is that it sounds like me. So when I'm talking, very well rehearsed, when I'm speaking, that's how my writing should be. So if you read my writings aloud, right, you will realize that it's somebody talking, and in a very rhythmic, artful way. So that's my goal, and that's helped me a lot when it came to thinking. And that's what I realized after doing all that thinking. I've seen that people don't really engage in that kind of thinking enough. A lot of people, I mean, most of them. So, which is bad, which is sad for them. I mean, it's just them losing out. You know, moving on, folks. I should say something addressing this. The question: are you not tempted to use AI for your writings? Now, in the letters to shareholder, the last letter which Mr. Jeff Bezos essentially wrote, right? Amazon letter to shareholders. He essentially quoted a book, and he said that, you've got to preserve your differences. You've got to preserve your differences. What he meant was, the analogy was the biological aspect of life, right? He said when a body is alive, its temperature is different from the surroundings. It's different when a body is alive, it's different from its surroundings. Only when the body dies is when it comes in equilibrium with everything else, right? It cools down, and that's when the body dies. Similar is the case for intelligence as well. Similar is the case of intellect. Similar is the case of how you want to live, you know, psychologically, intellectually, artistically, uh, financially. You've got to preserve your differences, uh, you know. So when I look at writing or whatever I do, when it comes to, I'm always thinking of preserving my differences, because if I start using AI and become like everybody else, I'll essentially die, right? So very good letter to shareholders by Jeff Bezos. Great one, great one. He quoted a book. He wrote very well that you've got to preserve your differences, otherwise you die, right? And somehow sooner or later you will end up dying, but till you are not dead, you shouldn't be dead, essentially. Moving on, folks. Festive demand 2025 is a gift that keeps giving. We've discussed this, so viewers of Thinkers Frequency obviously know. I told you like 3-4 quarters ago, right? This is what's going to happen, and that's exactly how it's shaping up. They expected a lull after Diwali because that's what happens. So, a lot of combined purchases happen during the festive season, and after the festive season, things sort of start tapering down. But I told you that was not gonna happen, right? I told you October, November, December is when the actual bonus is gonna, good news is gonna arrive. That's what's happening. Wedding season has given the push, and there's a lot of cash which people are still spending. So, good news still here. India's Q2 growth forecast at 7.3% on rural show higher government capex. So the government capex is of course doing what it's doing, and rural economy has done well. Good monsoons and so on and so forth. So 7.3% forecast, right? Uh, that's awesome. That's awesome. As I said, the government is essentially targeting something like an 8% growth rate, although it's extremely hard because of whatever is going on in the world, right? It's not the zero interest rate policy era anymore. So, but the government is pushing all cylinders, firing all cylinders to touch that 8% mark, because that's going to be like a way past the psychological barrier, right? When it comes to attracting investments and so on and so forth. Moving on, folks. We've already talked about the moratorium which the RBI and the government have given to exporters, right? Banks are a bit worried, but no problem as yet, right? So the moratoriums, the flip side of moratoriums is what if these people don't pay, right? After the deferred loans and stuff. But the accounts seem pretty stable right now. Let's move on. So there is this new thing, family offices investments via gift AIFs in spot. So family offices essentially looking at investing in overseas, right? They had problems, but a way around those problems was essentially using the gift route, the AIF route, alternate investment fund. But the authorities say that the alternate investment fund should be a mix of a lot of funds. A family office uh, cannot just be an AIF all of a sudden. Investing outside has this LRS, right? The What is the full form of LRS, which basically allows $250,000 to $50,000 of investments, right? LRS. I'm missing the what is it? Remittance scheme, but LRS, liquid remittance scheme, LRS full form. Just one second, folks. Liberalized remittance scheme. Yeah. So the liberalized remittance scheme, they want a way around it. So the gifts was a way around it, but there is a bottleneck there. So let's see what happens. Why is the government doing it? It doesn't want such the money outflow. The money outflow needs to be capped a little, otherwise might not be very healthy. But at the same time, you've got to give everybody the freedom to invest wherever they can, right? Otherwise, you become a money trap. Essentially, the economy becomes a money trap. Yeah, liberalized remittance scheme, Mr. Amritraj, you're right. So that's what's happening. Moving on, folks. Some challenges with the whole gift AIF play. Moving on. Samsung is looking at investing $310 billion in 5 years, right? Underpinning AI as global demand surges. So again, semiconductor play and so on and so forth, right? Fab manufacture, new semiconductor facility aimed at meeting rising memory chip demand and so on. So $310 billion in AI for the next 5 years, says Samsung. Dr. Michael Burry, by the way, came out with a report, uh, and he's going to be publishing something in on November 25. That's when his blog enters. But his report says that shale revolution. There was a bull in capex, right? After that capex, it stopped making sense and it never recovered. The same went with .com. The same went with housing, and now the same thing is happening with the this AI play, right? So he says that this capex essentially is gonna pop out, and the whole. So we've discussed about Dr. Burry's reading of the situation, how he mentioned the entire aspect of companies cooking their financial books by altering depreciation of these assets and so on and so forth. So he's pointing out to real data points. But you know what? I have a problem with those data points because that is like pattern matching, right? Every situation is different. Of course, there are patterns and patterns can repeat themselves, but you've got to look at things from a very first principles kind of a way, right? What happens if this particular play pans out? So when he says, or when people say that in order for this capex to make sense, AI will have to make $650 billion in revenue in a year, right? And that is not possible, right? And if that doesn't happen, all this capex will essentially start looking at as wasted expense. Now that is an analysis I like. I don't like graphs which say this happened in this year and this happened in that year and so on and so forth. It just doesn't work for me. And I'm not saying that I dislike Dr. Burry's analysis. No, I'm a fan. But this particular aspect of pattern matching, it doesn't sit well with me, right? Moving on, folks. Investors hop off at busy startup IPO with over 15,000 crores. Peak XP, SoftBank, Elevation, Axel, over $8 billion share hold shares worth $8 billion. So all that needs to happen, right, is that is some of that money coming to me, right? That's what's very necessary. So whatever these people are making with the IPOs and so on, I'm cool with the IPOs. Make like Lenskart $20 billion. I don't give a shit. All I want is some of that money to come here. Is that too much to ask, guys? Right? Let's see when it can happen. Moving on, folks. India Inc. Quarter second profit bounces into double digit. Aggregate expansion at 6 quarter high, 15%. Revenue at 5 quarter high of 8.6%. So metals, commodities, a lot of these companies, they are making money. Everybody was worried about India when it came to these earnings not matching the uh, expensive valuations of Indian equities. But now, it looks like they are, and that is good news because, the price to earnings of Indian equities was somewhere around 23, 20, right? And the peak was 31, but, still it seemed a little expensive, right? But now if the earnings catch up, you are going to see another bull run in the Indian markets. So Indian markets looking good. Indian markets, by the way, are looking better than any other market right now. Moving on, folks. States changing rules of biz game. Indian, governments are looking at improving the manufacturing play, right? Manufacturing, the biggest problem with manufacturing is land acquisition, our labor laws. So there are two aspects of uh, manufacturing setups. One is, of course, land, and the other is labor. And then, of course, there are 10,000 other problems with regulation. But majorly, if you just want to point out two things, it's land and labor. And that's what center and states are trying to do. Now, why does this particular headline doesn't make any sense? Because trying, nobody gives a shit about trying, right? You've got to do it. Nudged by center, states initiate slew of reforms, encouraging startups in manufacturing. Yeah, sure. Moving on, folks. A lot of political chit chat, which we are very happy to not discuss. Very happy to not discuss, right? Are you happy that we don't discuss politics? Is it not a great thing that we don't talk about politics at all? At all, right? No bias, no bullshit, no fights, just plain numbers with a bit of humor. Gems and jewelry exports have slid 31% in October, folks. 31%. Is anybody surprised? Nobody should be surprised at what's happening to gems and jewelry. Gems and jewelry business was already in trouble, right? So if you looked at diamond, the artificial diamond had taken the wind under the, wind away from the whole natural diamonds play. So that was already screwed, and then came the tariff, right? So gems and jewelry exports have slid. Let's see what happens as time goes by. It looks different. So my reading of the situation is that diamond is not coming back. Diamond is done. Diamond will never be this valuable again. Right? The companies right now, the diamond companies, essentially what they're trying to do is harp on the natural aspect of it, right? But it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So China has stopped buying diamonds. When I say that, I mean it don't take it literally. It's a figurative statement, figure of speech. Their diamond consumption has reduced by a lot. US the same thing, and it's gonna be the rest of the world soon. So artificial diamonds are gonna take the sheen away. Rest of the stones might still be valuable. So that essentially stays. And gold is up, right? So, but that India doesn't export, of course. Moving on, folks. You can ignore this comment. What? Why did you write that? Uh, Jackson has launched an 8,000 crore solar project, right? Jackson has launched an 8,000 crore solar project in Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh essentially attracting some solar facility. That is very, very cool. Right? Madhya Pradesh is not really a manufacturing hub, but the current dispensation is very interested in basically bringing manufacturing to the state, right? So 8,000 crores from Jackson, it's pretty good news for the state. However, whenever you read solar manufacturing or a solar project, just know that at the end of the day, China wins, right? It's China that wins. So solar manufacturing facility, we've talked about this. Moving on. Mr. Piyush Goyal is very bullish on sealing US and EU trade pacts. Uh, let's see what happens there. He says we are aggressively pursuing it, but as we do it, we need to expose Indian businesses who essentially make low quality stuff. We need to expose Indian businesses who import low quality stuff because of just price issues, right? Who don't stick together and who don't essentially, stick with the spirit. So he's talking about the spirit of business, the Indian business. We've talked a lot about this. He said it very, very openly that you are very happy to import from someplace else, even if it's just $1 lesser, right? Try selling to Japanese or Koreans your steel, right? Give them a discount and see how much they buy. They won't, because they stick with their, community, and that helps them be independent, right? But you're very happy to sell out at just one lesser dollar, right? And then what happens? Then your local market of suppliers dies, and when that market dies, the you are at the mercy of a very, very solid adversary. He was essentially hinting at China and the Indian business mentality of buying from China whenever they can get a chance. So he said, don't do that, and you need to expose these businesses. So that's beautiful. No, government authority has ever spoken like that very openly. Generally, people just like to, uh, you know, harp on the inadequacies of the government, right? But it's very important to point out at the inadequacies of businesses as well, the whole culture, right, of small and medium businesses, in fact, large businesses in India as well, because this is a cultural problem. Trying to save that squeeze that last money, right? Selling out your supplier for, let's say, somebody in China, doing all sorts of illegal stuff. These are cultural problems, and they need to be shamed. They need to be named and shamed and exposed, as Mr. Piyush Goyal says. Moving on, folks. Major revamp planned for speeding up steel imports. Plan to allow one SIM's registration for up to 1,000 tons of annual steel imports by a single player. Moving on. India amongst strongest global green hydrogen players, says Mr. He has a very complicated name, folks. He is Mr. Jorgo Chatsi Markakis. I'll try that again. It's Jorgo Chatsi Markakis. So he says that green hydrogen, essentially he's Hydrogen Europe CEO. He says that India is doing really well when it comes to green hydrogen. Why is India doing so well in green hydrogen? Can anybody guess? Right, there is one reason why India is doing well on green hydrogen. Can you point that out, folks? We've talked about this. We talk about this a lot. It's one insight that essentially helps us see the world much, much clearly. Why is India doing well, or let's say moving forward? Huge coastline, green hydrogen. No, the answer is political will. It's basically India forcing itself to opt for green hydrogen and alternate fuels, to cut dependence, to cut crude import dependence, to essentially reduce the forex drain, to essentially uh, create opportunities in house, to have some sort of export leverage. So it's political will. It's Mr. Nitin Gadkari, right? And that's exactly why we are being able to move forward in this area. Moving on, folks. Process is looking at raising its stake in Rapido. Uh, Moving on, coal imports up 14% in September on festive demand. So let's see. Festive demand. Indian stocks looking good. Rebound set stage for further upside, but Nifty must clear 2600, 26,100. That is sort of a breakout zone, right? Moving on, folks. Trump has essentially bought a few bonds like Netflix bonds, Mooney, and so on and so forth. Very weird that a president is being able to, like, also buy bonds. You know, you can't be a president and also a financial punter, right? But he's doing that. Very weird situation. Sumitomo Mitsui is open to raising Yes Bank stake and setting up a unit here, says the India head, and he says that Yes Bank, you know, its performance with our support will increase, and we want to make Yes Bank one of the top 5 banks. That's obviously very good news for Yes Bank. People said, is Yes Bank a good buy? I remember like maybe a month ago, right? And I said that it's not going to be a multi-bagger, but it's not a bad investment. That's how I remember. When was that? Maybe a couple of months ago. The stock is up 6% in 6 months. Year to date, 14%. 1 year, 16%. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? And what happened? Exactly what? And that's exactly. So some of the gains might just happen now. So the gains might grow up. But that's what it is. That's the bank. Moving on, folks. Wedding in India for the exotic field to save on costs. Destination weddings and the purse. So wedding business is a big business, $7 to $10 billion business, right? Destination weddings, these people are essentially talking about moving to 3-4 star resorts in tier 2 locations, even as international destinations are shifting to domestic settings, nudged by Prime Minister. So Prime Minister wants weddings to happen in India so that the forex doesn't go out. How much does a wedding cost, guys? Luxury wedding is 3 to 5 crores. Mid-range is 70 lakhs to 2 crore. And budget segment is 20 to 60 lakhs. So 3 to 5 crores is luxury wedding. You're spending 3 to 5 crores on a wedding in this market. In this market, it's pretty funny, man. It's so funny. Weddings, god damn it. Moving on, folks. Marriage season in full force. I hear so many horror stories about marriage, right? So just a few days ago, I was talking to a friend of mine. She and I were connected like a few years ago. Let's say 6 years ago. About 4 years ago, she got married, right? And and somehow I got a message from her out of the blue, years later, and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? How's your marriage? That was my, I don't know if it was a bad question, but she said we're just getting separated, and I'm like, whoa, I'm so sorry, man, right? And I hear this so much, and then I hear about 3 to 5 crores being spent on weddings, right? And 20 to 60 lakhs on a budget wedding, so to speak. I'm like, man, you got balls. Brass balls. Brass balls. Moving on, folks. India Inc. rethinks internal audits amid fraud and AI. So, a lot of frauds are happening when it comes to, let's say, you remember Indus End, you remember Gensol and so on and so forth. The problem with audits is that audits are a lagging indicator, right? The periodic audits that these companies do, they are a lagging indicator. The way to see the world is what is a leading indicator and what is a lagging indicator. If you can figure out leading indicators and differentiate them from lagging indicators, you can actually look into the future. You can actually predict the future, right? The beauty is that these audits are essentially the once a quarter or once a year end. They are all just hindsight analysis, right? When everything is screwed, that's when you get to read those books. So what India Inc. is trying to do is conventional audits are for compliance, But for risk assessment, there has to be some sort of a real time play, right? So a series of cause of fraud at companies, Indus and Gensol, coupled with explosion of data, is putting spotlight on static sample-based internal audits. Auditors say this conventional is useful for compliance, but often lacks the real-time responsiveness. Rapid digitization has gone through, might need a better way to do this thing. Is anybody surprised at the idea? Sounds like a Does it sound like a very smart idea for you? Nah, it's usual. It's usual, obviously. But what are you gonna do? That's the interesting part, right? So expectations are shifting just from data validation to assessing embedded IT and manual controls. So control systems. Moving on. Luxury homes eyeing in India. Path is far from smooth. Of course, land acquisition, as I talked about, it has its second order effects in all markets. Speaking of property market folks, Godrej Properties is launching homes worth 22,000 crore in second half, right? 22,000 crore worth of housing, right? That's what's happening, and all of that, most of that in the premium segment, right? Uh, Basically, whatever is happening in the Indian housing play is premium housing, not affordable housing, not economy housing, premium, ultra premium, and so on and so forth. Now, when that happens, and a lot of people are saying that it's sorry, that it's foreigners who are buying, so NRIs and so on and so forth. Those people are essentially latching on to the real estate, the expensive real estate that India is selling. Well, that's very, very bothersome, right? It's good for the real estate industry, but it's bad for everybody else, right? The second order effects of this essentially hurt everybody. So that's what's going on, folks. Godrej doing well, DLF doing well, everybody doing well in the real estate play. Moving on, folks. Speaking of real estate, Mumbai and Maharashtra's slum rehabilitation plan is doing a lot of work. So you know about Dharavi redevelopment plan, which is being done by Adani, 80%, 20% holding of that particular play. It's gonna be improving a lot of infrastructure, connectivity, and so on and so forth. And of course, it's gonna be unlocking a lot of land value in a place where land is very scarce. I'm talking about Mumbai, of course. So that is a very, very big deal. But there are, of course, challenges galore when it comes to a project of that ambition, right? That scale. It's just extraordinary how hard doing something like that is. So let's see. Let's see how that shapes up. For now, it's a work in progress, right? For when is the delivery date, completion year of Dharavi project? So is not yet finished, of course. I just want to know how much. 7 years. Okay. 7 years starting. Uh, so it's basically a 2035 play, essentially. Given premium play, there is gap in affordable housing, so there are chances of other players to fill the vacuum, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. The problem is that there's not enough depth in the market for this affordable housing play. So a lot of market depth is from that rich, ultra rich kind of a play only, right? The usual guys, they don't have enough money to buy housing, and that's why people are not investing enough in it, right? That's why the government is stepping in to make sure that that happens, because if and the whole premium, ultra premium play, it just pushes things up, and that's sort of, so it's not just a supply problem, Mr. Sharma. It's not as if somebody can come and fill in and it's gonna work out well. It's not a supply gap, it's also a demand problem, which is very sad, but it is what it is, right? Moving on, folks. uh, HUDCO, the Housing and Urban Development Play, is raising $1 billion, right? ADB, to mobilize infra projects in the country. We've talked about that. This was a growing, developing story, and that's happened. With this, we've covered everything, folks. This brings us to the end of the 102nd episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. Right? I hope you liked the episode. Uh, I loved it. I had a lot of fun. I hope you had fun. I hope it added value to you. It definitely added a lot of value to me. It's 9:14, so we'll punch in anytime. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. And I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. I should thank Mr. Sumanth Kumar, of course, Mr. Head It Home, Mr. William Davis, Mr. Tushar Tiwari, Mr. Amrit Raj, Mr. Abhishek Sharma, and Mr. Class Apart, and everybody else who joined, of course. Please take care. And I repeat, do not learn to pick up women from billionaires who are 6'3", Harvard educated, and with perfect face, perfect body, perfect hair, right? They're not the right people for that advice. Take care. Oh man, may I meet you. May I meet you.